Hi, glad you could make it today. I'm Mickey and you're listening to the Obsession Report. Let's dive deep about things that keep us up at night. In today's episode, instead of doing a full rundown of a game that I like, we are doing a first impressions of a game that has just released, mainly Metaphor ReFantazio. If you haven't heard of Metaphor ReFantazio yet, its creators are the minds behind the Persona series. From the developers to the composers, all of them had worked on Persona. Metaphor ReFantazio is a sort of passion project by these creators and has been in the works since 2016. The first impressions will cover as far as the demo takes us, mainly the prologue and 3 days after it. Overall, you get about 8 hours of gameplay, which is already very beefy for a demo. Before we begin, let me know your thoughts about Metaphor. Were you excited for it because its creators were behind Persona? Is this the first time hearing about this game? And for those who have already finished it, what are your spoiler-free thoughts about the game? Without further ado, let's start. Immediately upon booting up the game on my PC, you are met with a voice-acted message from the developers of the game. This message is written in the context of the game's world and gives the player a first taste of what the world of Metaphor ReFantazio is like. This shows the amount of effort the developers put into this game, because this message could very easily be a simple non-voice acted message and written casually.
Here begins the demo prologue of Metaphor ReFantazio. What we have to offer you is but a taste of the story from its beginning, but through it, your experience will mirror the full version. Should you wish it, you may carry over your save data to the full version. We thank you for expressing your curiosity about our tale of fantasy.
Another thing that is unique to Metaphor is putting the intro cutscene even before starting the game. Instead of a music video-esque intro, you get a fully 2D animated cutscene setting the context of the game. You do get the MVS intro after that, but the fact that that's not the first thing that you see when you boot up the game is very interesting. The king was assassinated by a man called Louis, and it is implied that Louis had also killed the prince. This is not a spoiler because, as mentioned, even before playing the game, this cutscene already starts playing. Atlus had been very innovative in its creation of video games, as seen with the focus on UI in Persona 5, where I think at the time not a lot of Japanese companies, at least Japanese game companies, were focusing on it. And also the creation of the Persona gameplay loop in P3, a little bit of an older example, but so many games gain inspiration from this, such as Fire Emblem Three Houses, Trails of Cold Steel. Those are the ones that I can think of from the top of my head. Metaphor is no different, and these two aspects that I've mentioned already make it stand out from any other game that I've played.
To hell. It's a far cry from when we had Count Luis at the helm, I'll tell you that much.
The story of Metaphor ReFantazio takes place in the United Kingdom of Uchronia, a medieval fantasy setting similar to the likes of Final Fantasy. This fantasy world is made up of many tribes, with prejudice and discrimination everywhere. The game sets up the story by showing the assassination of its king. Before this, however, a curse was placed on the prince, which caused him to fall asleep, similar to Sleeping Beauty. However, only a few of the prince's closest friends and confidants know that he is still alive. To the world at large, the prince died in the assassination attempt. The protagonist of the story, which the player can name, is an orphan from the Elder tribe. This tribe stands out because of the lack of elf ears and horns, and is looked down upon by the other tribes. He is accompanied by Gallica, who is a fairy, and goes into the city to fulfill their mission of meeting their contact undercover in the military. The protagonist is friends with the prince since childhood, and he decides to join the royal tournament, a competition held to decide the successor to the throne, journey across Uchronia to gain allies and search for a way to lift the curse on the prince. So the prologue covers the recruitment of Stroll, a nobleman who enlists in the military, Grius, the prince's former guard, and Haukenberg, who used to be under Grius. The game knows that it is a fantasy story and leans very heavily on the medieval influences seen in the likes of like Castlevania, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, etc. Even the large enemies are called humans, which is very ironic considering all the players are humans, after all. So the people living in Uchronia are separated and discriminated, as mentioned, based on their tribes. So these tribes are similar to races, and so essentially racism is a huge issue in this game. As of the demo, we are introduced to 5 different tribes. These tribes are, number 1, the Clamar tribe. These people make up the majority and are the race of the Ukronia royal family. People in this race also tend to hold many important positions and generally are favoured by the people around them. Their distinguishing feature are the pair of horns on their heads, and they generally have an average build. So Stroll, who's from the Clamar tribe, is a nobleman, and the fact that he's from a noble family already says it all. The second tribe is the Rusain. I actually don't know how to pronounce this, but it's the Rusain, Roussainte tribe. These people are the second most populous tribe in Ukronia and have long elf-like ears. These people tend to have very good physical abilities, and thus many of them end up in military positions. Hulkenberg, who used to be from the Prince's Guard, is from this tribe. The third tribe is the Paripus tribe. These people have animal-like ears and tails, kind of like beasts. They are blessed with animal-like physical abilities and generally have a carefree and cheerful personality. Because of their resemblance to animals, however, there is discrimination against the tribe and thus they don't really have good political influence. The fourth tribe is the Roak tribe. These people have dark or greyish skin tones and are known for having long lives. Because of their longevity, many Roaks are in senior professions and will always keep a promise. Grius is from this tribe and he used to be Hulkenberg's senior in the Prince's Guard. And finally, we have the Elder tribe. These people don't really have any defining characteristics as mentioned. They look mostly like our reality's humans. They're a lot smaller than the other tribes and some people go their entire lives not ever meeting an elder. Some people don't even believe that elders exist and thus they are not an official tribe. Our main character is an elder and as of the demo, the only elder in the game. Many tribes are either favoured or discriminated against, as mentioned, because of their race, and I guess because of whether they make up the majority or not. Sometimes the stories that come from it are very heartbreaking as well.
Reality is much too cruel. I know that. But I'll fight it.
The game looks beautiful as well, considering that it's running on the P5 engine. In my opinion, it looks a lot more like Catherine, their other game that also uses a P5 engine. The reason why I feel this way is because the way backgrounds are rendered in this game makes the whole world feel like a fairy tale story. You have thick black lines outlining the skyline and buildings, and a kind of paper-like texture for the background sky, cave, or just dungeon in general. Considering this game leans very heavily into its medieval-like setting, including having characters from all different tribes, as well as how the narrator of this game, Moore, narrates our adventure like a novel. Despite the beautiful graphics, the P5 engine is showing its age. This engine was initially created for the PS3 before improving it for the PS4, and it really shows compared to other big game releases this year, such as like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Stellar Blade, just to name a few. Some players online have also expressed that they are having issues with the PC port of the game, especially with some anti-aliasing and frame rate issues. There's also some controller issues mentioned, although not as much as the anti-aliasing and the frame rate issues. Personally, my PC is running the game fine. It's a PC from 2021. It's not that high end, and I do play only at 60 FPS. So if you want to play higher than that, I'm not sure how the game will fare. But if your PC has specs similar to mine, you'll be fine. I played the game with a keyboard and mouse, and I haven't experienced any of the graphical issues yet.
Okay, I'll put them on what we've got.
Shoji Meguro is behind the music, so it's gonna be a banger. I mean, have you heard Persona's music? Going back to being a little bit serious though, I actually like the music in Metaphor much more than Persona. Although, I do have a bias for orchestral music, personally, so that definitely plays a part in my opinion. I haven't heard all the tracks yet, because I've only played the demo, but some of my favorites so far include Ode to Heroes, which is kind of like the Velvet Room equivalent, Heroes Awakening, which as the name suggests is when our heroes awaken to their power, and even the normal battle theme has the right amount of intensity. It's intense enough for a battle, but not intense enough for a boss battle. As someone who's familiar with Persona and to a certain extent SMT music, as well as Shoji Meguro's other well-known works, I have to say that Metaphor ReFantazio is really one of his best works. I'm very interested to check it out on Spotify, but I want to experience the tracks for myself firsthand through the game's context, so I will be holding off from listening to it on Spotify. So am I going to continue? The short answer is yes. The long answer is yes, of course. I already bought the game and started playing past the demo already. Even though personally my least favorite setting in RPGs are medieval fantasies, playing the demo already made me very excited and interested in the world that it has painted. I think that its exploration of themes are very relatable, like discrimination, death, power struggles, and poverty, and it really helps to keep this medieval fantasy grounded. And at the same time, it lets players relate to the characters as well as the world, I guess, despite it being very far removed from the real world. As more asked at the start of the game, is fantasy limited to the confines of imagination? Is fantasy a powerless creation? Well, I answered no, and have always believed that fiction, or in this case fantasy, has the power to change and influence people. I will be doing a full review of the game once I'm done, but needless to say, I am enjoying myself very much. Okay, I'll leave this episode off here, and I'm gonna go back to playing Metaphor right now. Bye!